your AIDS. This was 1989 after all. Times were a little bit different back then. The biggest issue that I have with Dog Soldier is that it's just so painfully boring. It essentially follows the same formula as all those other ultra-violent 80s anime OVAs, but if you took out all the ultra-violence, which I would argue is the best part of all of these old anime OVAs. The action is boring, the art and animation is subpar, and the story is something you've seen a million times already. I honestly think Dog Soldier is truly one of the most awful anime I've seen so far, because I believe that there is no bigger sin than something being so incredibly boring and forgettable that you forget what you just watched the moment the credits roll. Atelier Petros Joku Gekijo Sentaku Shima no Sentakudori. What is this, a Harry Potter spell? No, in fact, it's a 3-minute flash animation made by some random dude about a green bird doing laundry. Why? Are we just gonna add anything and everything made by a Japanese person onto Mal now? Like what's the point anymore? Yukiboke or The Thaw is another 6-minute avant-garde short about a boy discovering what irrational fears are, and this one is truly disturbing, but in an actual good way. The art style reminds me of something Nakayama Masaaki would do, and the minimal use of sounds and ambient white noise adds to this unsettling and uncomfortable nature of the whole thing. Like, I can actually respect this one because I understood exactly what was going on and the atmosphere it created served its purpose. So, hey, well done to whatever sick and twisted freak who decided to release this onto the earth. You did good. After witnessing whatever that thing was, that will definitely come back to haunt me in my nightmares. Mahou Shoujo Nadia Girls is a much-deserved palette resetter, but still a crap show nonetheless. It's basically the most basic magical girl show with the most basic characters, but the way it's presented is really, strange. The characters interact not in your typical scripted anime-style dialogue, but more in an improvised conversation, like almost as if you're watching a 3D VTuber collaboration where they just talk about a bunch of random shit as they wait for their random super chats to come flying in. This weird vibe is given off even more with how meta and fourth wall breaking the show is, with the 3 girls wanting to be popular magical schoolgirls and gain widespread recognition from their show, which I'm sorry to say, girls, that's just not gonna happen. The Irresponsible Galaxy Tyler is actually a spin-off to 1993's The Irresponsible Captain Tyler, which in my opinion was a pretty decent comedy sci-fi show with strong characters and funny plot lines. So how the hell did they manage to fuck it up this badly? The jokes, if you can even call them that, are just so not funny that you would have thought Amy Schumer was responsible for them, and although the updated visuals try to appeal to the newer generation of anime fans, its contents are the most vapid, eye-rolling, piss-poor excuse of a comedy that I have ever seen. And the fact that they managed to make 12 episodes for this just goes to show that whoever was responsible had a personal vendetta against the original Captain Tyler series. Like, I'm certain of it. Like, did your dad leave you when you were little and Captain Tyler was playing on the TV or something? Like, I'm seriously wondering who this show is even aimed for, because I'm certain there's not a single age demographic who would find this show enjoyable in any sense of the word. Okay, the anger I felt during the making of this entire video is perfectly reflected by the title of the next entry on our shit list, Summer's Puke in Winter's Delight. This one's just gross. It's a 3-minute short of some of the most what the fuck imagery paired with what I can only describe as puke trap music playing in the background. Like, imagine your typical trap song, but then they decided to sample puking sounds into it. I'm sorry, but I don't want to listen to someone throwing up for 3 minutes as my eyeballs are subjected to disturbing hallucinogenic imagery. Like, that's a fat no from me, dog, thank you. Hair or The Room does not have Tommy Wiseau in it, unfortunately. Instead, it is a 5-minute avant-garde art piece made in 1967 about a bunch of random crap appearing and disappearing in a box room. Again, I'm sure there's some kind of deeper meaning to this one, but after the last couple of anime I just watched, I don't really want to use my brain cells for a while. Hanukkah Recap is, as the name suggests, a recap episode from the series Hanukkah, which conveniently is also included on this list. So let's just talk about the whole series together because, holy crap, this show, man. It was made in 2006 as basically a showcase for Adobe Flash and how it can be used in the potential future for anime, but if anything, it proved to be the most hilarious showcase for how terrible and amateurish anime can look. I mean, just look at this opening, man. The first time I saw this, I just sat there absolutely dumbfounded. My jaw was on the floor, and I quietly said to myself, what the fuck is this? For those who give two rat's asses about the story, Hanukkah is set in an alternate universe where humanity wages war against an invading alien species. And to combat its destruction, the government organization sends out our human experiment protagonist who is designed to be the demon god. Look, I'm sure that in their heads they envisioned this to be like a badass sci-fi action show, but the results are just hilarious. The characters look like they were drawn with a mouse on Microsoft Paint after reading the How to Draw Anime Faces WikiHow for 15 minutes, and the animation is just so clunky and rigid that I can see the animation timeline in my head as it plays out. Like, if you took every anime-style Newgrounds Flash animation, fed them all into an AI, and said, computer, make a show that looks exactly like this, Hanukkah would be the show that the AI will spit out at you at the end. And yeah, it's not a good look. And it's just the fact that the studio had the audacity to think that the plot would be so convoluted and so worthy of our understanding from the audience so that they had to go and make fucking recap episode for it as well. It just goes to show that they had absolutely no idea how crap of a show they managed to end up making. Like, deadass, I think they should actually use Hanukkah in college animation lectures as an example of how not to make an anime in Flash, because anybody at a college level understanding of animation can tell you this show just ain't it. Milpom Pilots is, as the name suggests, the pilot episode of the anime Milpom Star, which yes, also ended up being a forgettable piece of garbage, falling into the why the hell is this on my anime list pile of slop. Instead of drawings, it uses these IRL dolls to create like this low-budget stop-motion animation, but the story is just non-existent and pointless, and the dolls themselves look like something a serial killer would make in his cell using leftover Furbies and Barbie doll parts he bought for a few packs of cigarettes. And the show itself sparks the age-old question of who the hell is this show intended for other than psychological girls on the verge of a mental breakdown? The next one on this list is an interesting one, as it's probably the most recently aired one on this shit list. Rusted Armors is a 12-episode, one-core historical anime about a bunch of hot samurai boys fighting for power and freedom, or I'm sure that's the concept they were originally hoping for. Instead, it turned into an ungodly amalgamation of brick-stiff 3D animation with a cast that looks like a combination of rejected Demon Slayer and Tokyo Revengers goons, and seeing the voice actor list in this, I'm sure this was built to be some kind of like Fujo-based show, but I don't think even the most blind yaoi lovers in the world would fall in love with these basic-ass character archetypes. Oh, and all of this that you're seeing right now was made in 2022, the same year we got fucking cyberpunk edgerunners, proving once and for all that in the world of anime, money really does solve all issues. But listen, even still, I went ahead and spent 6 hours watching the final moments of the final episode, and I felt more empty inside than when I finished Oyasumi Punpun, but definitely not in the good way. Apparently this show is an anime adaptation of a stage play of the same name, and look, I'm yet to see the original stage play, but I think this might be the first time where the live action is infinitely better than the anime. Basically, as the name suggests, watching this anime really does feel like you're going into battle wearing rusty armor. You're just waiting in pain for someone to end your life. The embryo develops into a fetus is an insane title, but is actually quite a nice and short 1-minute silent animation that I'm actually like genuinely questioning why it has such a low score on my anime list. I mean, sure, it's not the most like gripping or tantalizing story or anything like that. It's just a simple morph animation of an embryo growing into a fetus, but the animation quality is actually really smooth and quite impressive. I've always been a fan of these kinds of like trippy morph animations ever since I watched Space Duck by Sexual Lobster back on Newgrounds, but I just feel like this could have developed into so much more than it ended up being, and so it just feels like a bit of a wasted potential. Bottom line, this one was actually pretty cool. I would actually recommend this. Yoru no Okite, or A Rule of Dreams, dives immediately back into the what the fuck territory, displaying an extremely unnerving combination of disturbing hand-drawn events paired with a single flute sound being played over and over again by someone who sounds like they're on the verge of an asthma attack. Again, something I could probably appreciate in a contemporary arts museum under the influence of a myriad of psychedelics, but you won't be catching me watching this ever again. Let's finally step foot back into the realm of full-length feature films with Armageddon. Listen, boys, I searched far and wide to find the original Japanese version, but I could only find the English dub version, which, I'm gonna be honest, doesn't make this film any better or worse. Also, I'm fairly certain that this movie was made by some, like, Korean studio, considering all the hangul that you see all over the place, but for some reason, it's still included on my anime list because, I guess it looks and feels like a shitty 90s anime film. Either way, this movie stinks big time. It has a stupidly simple and unoriginal story where the main character has to save the world from destruction, and surprise, surprise, he does so successfully. Whoa, wait, no way! But not before we're subject to hideous character designs, tacky animation, and a forgetful soundtrack and plot. Yes, the unholy trinity of terrible anime. This is another example of an anime that commits the cardinal sin of it's not even so bad that it's good, it's just bad. And the only reason you should ever watch this is if you've literally seen every other anime ever made and still want more for whatever reason. Requiem is another short avant-garde animation that looks simple enough, but yeah, I don't get it. Let's check out another full-length anime film, Micro Tech Gong Dai Diatron 5. It's a Korean mecha anime from the 80s that I could only find the English dub for, which, first of all, has a banger opening song like it's so goddamn 80s. I feel like growing my hair out and snorting coke all night. But yeah, other than that, it's a massive train wreck with a hilariously tacky dub. Like, the script is unintentionally freaking hilarious because the characters just talk a bunch of crap that doesn't even relate to the story half the time, and the action sequences are interesting to say the least. Also, I think we can go ahead and give this film the award for dumbest cast in anime, since every character acts more irrational and brain dead than your average kick streamer. It's a funny little watch if you don't take it all that seriously, but other than that, yeah, it's a massive waste of time. Circle is a 1-minute avant-garde music video that simulates what it's like to be on fentanyl while listening to Frédéric Chopin. I didn't ask, but thank you for that wealth of knowledge. Petting a dog is an even shorter and more straightforward entry that simulates what it's like to be on it dead than your average kick streamer. It's a funny little watch if you don't take it all that seriously, but other than that, yeah, it's a massive waste of time. Circle is a 1-minute avant-garde music video that simulates what it's like to be on fentanyl while listening to Frédéric Chopin. I didn't ask, but thank you for that wealth of knowledge. Petting a dog is an even shorter and more straightforward entry on the list, with it merely being a 16-second animation of a man petting a dog, and honestly, it's cute. I think the only reason why it's such a low score is not because it's like badly made or anything, it's because people are confused as to why the fuck it's on my anime list, and I'm gonna have to agree with those people, but the dog is cute. I'm gonna admit that. Look at him. On the other hand, we have another 12-episode one-core anime called Gibiate, or Gibiate. Gibiate? Who gives a shit? Which I have actually seen a little bit of before when it first aired back at the beginning of the pandemic, and I must have completely erased this from my mind because, wow, this one is bad. It's essentially a reverse isekai of a bunch of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure wannabe samurai fighting monsters in post-apocalyptic Japan, which on the surface sounds great, especially once you find out that the concept art was done by legendary Final Fantasy artist Yoshitaka Amano. Man, he must have been bored with this one. But listen, boys, if Berserk has proved anything over the years, it's that the more amazing the original art is, the more of a catastrophe its anime counterpart will be. And it's not just the PowerPoint-level action scenes and the dogshit 3D CGI monsters that make the show a forgettable piece of garbage. Because I mentioned JoJo's Bizarre Adventure earlier, and I did it kind of on purpose because the director of Gibiate is the same character designer who brought Stardust Crusaders to screen, which makes me think that Gibiate must be what JoJo looks like to people who fucking despise JoJo. The show should have been called Kathleen's Bizarre Adventures Fantasy evil final resident of the Handshakers, because the show's influences and lack of creative execution is more painfully obvious than the cliche conclusion to every episode of this complete dog water excuse of an anime. Next, let's take a look at another piss poor excuse of an anime straight from the smelly asshole of 2020, the Ninja Collection. Somehow this show makes Gibiate look like an episode of Jujutsu Kaisen with its clunky and almost avant-garde styled animation, which I guess was a purposeful choice considering the show is considered a supernatural horror, but unfortunately, once you start watching it, you realize that it barely qualifies as such, let alone qualifying as a ninja anime at all. I feel like the whole like ninja aspect of the show was tacked on right at the end to make the show more like action oriented, but the show's story is so nonsensical that after a few minutes it just makes you want to like turn it off and throw it in the trash, which I very promptly and proudly proceeded to do so, and I advise you to do the exact same. The boldly titled Horny is a 15-second MTV Japan intro featuring experimental animation of a bunch of bobs and schnips bouncing all over the screen while a woman moans annoyingly loud in your ears, and that despite its title will guarantee to leave you softer than a pillow after watching it from how uncomfortable the whole experience is. Meanwhile, Dreams goes in the complete opposite direction and shows trippy hand-drawn animations of what is considered more to be a nightmare blunt rotation than any kind of sane dream, with some mega trippy sound effects and music that reminds me of the most messed up parts of LSD Dream Emulator, and honestly makes me never want to go to sleep ever again. Is another contemporary art film whose title should have been called Trains, because all it is a 2-minute video of a train animated from multiple angles. I like trains. I guess the dude who made this is an influential figure in the world of independent filmmaking and animation, so the people who like that kind of stuff have left some pretty positive reviews on it over on my anime list, but again, I'm just too dumb and or tired to care, so let's move on. Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned is what it looks like when someone tries to recreate Bram Stoker's Dracula without having ever read a book in their life and solely grew up watching Scooby-Doo and Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I mean, look, it's certainly not the worst thing I've ever seen and is nothing out of the ordinary compared to some of its 80s contemporaries, but it's just kind of boring to watch. Like, there are just way too many shots of slow zoom-ins and slow zoom-outs and panning shots that are just way too dragged out. Like, I'm not editing any of these shots. This is literally what it looks like for the entire film. Like, they could have used all the time they took with all these unnecessary shots to, I don't know, flesh out the overly confusing and convoluted story, but I guess the animators weren't getting paid enough to actually animate. The only decent thing I can actually comment on is the funky AF music that plays every now and then that definitely reflects the time that this was made, but other than that, just use your time effectively and watch Hellsing Ultimate instead or something. It's so much of a better show. Yasashi Kinyobi, or Sweet Friday, is another surreal animated short from the 1970s that was clearly created before they discovered what epileptic seizures were, because this one is like physically difficult to watch now. At least the music in it is jazzy and kind of cool at times, but I seriously question the sanity of people who like make this kind of stuff. Like, I'm worried, guys. Are you sure everything is okay up there? Nendo no Tatakai, or Battle of Clay, easily gets the award for the worst music and audio of all the entries in this list, and as the name suggests, is a 1-minute crude animation of 2 balls of clay fighting each other for no particular reason. This was made in the same year as Promare was released, by the way. Just let that sink in. Crayon Angel, born from the same psychotic brain who made Sweet Friday that we saw earlier, is, I guess, supposed to be conveying the fact that, I don't know, creativity in the arts died after World War II or something. It's trippy as shit and uses a sample of a Led Zeppelin song, and I think I can understand what it's trying to say, but one thing I can say with absolute confidence, this is not an anime. Why is it on the website? Panzer Dragoon is another infamous crappy dark fantasy sci-fi anime from the 90s that is just utterly garbage. Based on the video game of the same name, condensed down into 26 minutes of pure WTF-ness, it not only has some of the most hideous 3D CGI backgrounds and models you will ever see, but also has a story that is completely pointless if you've never played the original source material. But the biggest shocker of all is that this was made by none other than Production IG. Yes, the same studio that brought us all of these amazing anime. IG were off the henny for this one. Not only is the story extremely rushed and the dialogue consists of nothing but the main character saying 76 times as if the original Japanese version wasn't bad enough, the English dub is on a whole other level of rotten dog toads. Like, the English voice of Alita sounds like if Ash Ketchum was going through puberty really badly, and the dialogue... Alita! 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 so cheesy that it makes my fucking face melt off. The anime literally ends with the main character looking at a dragon and saying, Alita, this is the shape of destiny. No dog, I'm pretty sure that's the shape of a bad fucking anime.
Yes!
Wonder Momo is another cheap and uninspired story of aliens coming to Earth as a bunch of idol girls morph into dollar store transformers to fight them off with the power of kawaii and friendship. The voice acting sounds amateurish at best, and the entire show just feels stiffer than a used pair of fat socks. Like, I don't think even the most brain-dead idol fans can get behind this one, to be honest, which is saying a lot considering that idol fans will literally buy anything, even if their Oshi is the most brain-dead, stupid character of all human existence. Crazy clay wrestling is a fucking nightmare come to life of a bunch of claymation figures reenacting their favorite WWE matches. It's weird, it's unsettling, and fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on who you ask, it will not be the last time we see its creator Takeda on this list. How exciting. Goodbye Marilyn is yet another disturbing avant-garde short film, I guess about Marilyn Monroe, but if it was made by the creator of Blonde after a night of ketamine. In other words, throw it in the trash. We don't need it in our lives. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are officially halfway done with the list. My sanity meter is already close to depletion, but we still have 50 more terrible anime to go through. So take a sip of water, get some snacks ready, and let's dive headfirst into the top 50, shall we? Hang on tight. It's gonna be a rough one. Tragedy on the G line consists of someone playing a violin for the first time, screeching in your ears for a whole 6 minutes as weird imagery and shapes crawl all across the screen. And seriously, how the hell am I supposed to analyze this? What do you want from me? Aos, made by the same dude as the previous entry, is another WTF moment that this time stretches for 9 whole minutes and features the beautiful and serene screams and disturbing noises of none other than Yoko Ono. And according to my research, apparently won some kind of award back in 1965. I thought I understood contemporary art, but I guess I'm just a pleb compared to some people. Also, well done to Yoko Ono for making her anime debut. Don't come back. Praise the Lord, ladies and gentlemen, because Takeda is back already on this list with his next work, No Littering. It's basically what a PSA would look like if it was made by a horror movie fanatic, with it consisting of a man littering during a date, to which Jason, yes, like Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, comes along and stabs the littering man with a giant pair of tongs and kills him. Although I must say, slightly ironic that Jason didn't pick up the body, he just mutilated afterwards, so yeah, who knew Jason? It's a bit of a hypocrite little bug himself. This one is just kind of funny and amusing, but certainly not good enough for commercial mainstream consumption, according to my anime list. The next entry is actually 3 entries in one, as all 3 seasons of this show make it onto this list at various points, with the first season being the 18th worst anime ever made according to my anime list, and it's called Generation of Chaos. It was created by the anime studio Idea Factory, which, trust me, you will be seeing again further down this video, and despite its name, it is full of only the worst ideas ever conceived in anime. Set in the fantasy realm of Neverland, our 2 heroes must save humanity from a horde of monsters that are trapped in this PS2 looking ass world by being some of the most boring characters ever written in anime history. The only way I could describe this show is if you took the world of Dragon Quest monsters and combined it with all the worst parts of Slayers, and then packaged that all into the tackiest JRPG adaptation ever created. The music throughout the show sounds like someone trying really hard to not get copyrighted by Final Fantasy, and not to mention that the show is split into 2 unconnected stories, which makes the plot that much more rushed and difficult to understand. Oh, and by the way, the opening for season 2 is done by freaking Mizuki Nana, the same person who voiced Hinata from Naruto. How much money did they throw at this woman to convince her to be a part of this? It must have been close to all the budget they had, because the animation quality takes a massive dip compared to season 1, with some scenes just straight up looking unfinished. Like, someone said, okay, this is the basic structure of the backgrounds, we just need to color it in and touch it up a bit, and then the boss came back and was like, it's going out tomorrow. Like, just look at these goofy ass scenes. Like, mind you, I am not editing this footage whatsoever. This is exactly how the anime is paced, and you're gonna show me this during what's supposed to be some kind of confrontational scene between 2 characters and expect me to take it all seriously? Like, where's my man going? And the 3rd season is essentially all of the above, but this time being split into 2 episodes instead of 1, and features easily the worst art and animation of the entire series. I mean, look, it's certainly not the worst anime from Idea Factory I've ever seen, but it just seems like the people who worked on this didn't give 2 rats asses about their work whatsoever and just threw this into the void to annoy the world. While we're here though, let's check out another Idea Factory masterwork because, oh man, I can't get enough of them! Spectral Force follows suit with the previous entry being yet another bland, boring, and terribly written dark fantasy show, but this time we are blessed with an English dub. I'm ready to end it all if you are, if you know what I mean, dog. The show is an absolute clusterfuck of bad CGI, incomprehensible animation sequences, and voice actors that sound like they did not want to be at the recording booth whatsoever. For one, scene transitions in this show make absolutely 0 sense. Like, 1 minute they're saying something, and then suddenly mid-sentence, it cuts to 2 completely different characters fighting off demons or trying to progress the plot in some way, but God knows what the hell is going on at all. Because this is an earlier Idea Factory work, it consists of a little more violence than Generation of Chaos, but it certainly does not save this show from being a steaming pile of crap. Anyway, enough about Idea Factory for now. Let's get right back into some shorter avant-garde films, this time with Running Man, a 6-minute epileptic seizure-inducing anime that consists of a man running forever. That's what I want to do, run away from it all. Listen, we've been subjected to so much terrible anime so far, but I dare say this next one is here to truly make anime great again. Yo, President Trap-kun, and it's a 1-minute crude short of an anime version of former US President Donald Trump transferring to a new school as he spits some hot bars about farting in the faces of his teachers and literally pissing on his fellow classmates. Also, his head is a lunchbox, apparently. God, I love anime. Hey, remember Takana? Well, he's back for more. Dead World is a claymation homage to the classic splatter horror films of the 90s that is somehow better paced, better animated, and more coherently constructed than the entirety of Generation of Chaos, despite being only a few minutes long. Listen, I don't know if watching all these like horrendous anime has just changed my brain chemistry, or if this entry is actually somewhat decent, or even potentially good, but all I can say is that I highly regret doing this video at all, so let's move on. Red Colored Bridge is another avant-garde psychological horror short that makes me question my sanity and the sanity of its creator, but at least it follows through its trippy themes with some pretty cool imagery and animation. Except for maybe a few that I definitely cannot show on YouTube, but at this point, nothing can or will faze me.
I am already too far gone, and I've seen and experienced things no single man should ever experience, and I need help. Please, help me.
Captain of Cosmos, or as I like to call it by its alternative title, Johnny Destiny Space Ninja, that's the most amazing title I've ever seen, is a Korean space sci-fi film from 1979 whose main character looks like Shah Aznavour if he was on meth, whose story is trying so hard to be like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, but instead ends up being more like Legend of the Galactic Dickballs. The animation is decent for its time, but the English dub voice acting is hilariously terrible, and the story is so bland that I basically forgot what it was about the moment the credits started rolling. Also, how the hell are these people breathing and talking normally in the vacuum of space without the proper equipment? Seriously, nothing makes sense in this movie, and I just don't care enough to know the explanation. The homie Takana is back for another helping with Dead Girl, another claymation horror short, but this time posed as a trailer to a fake horror movie that was submitted to Japan's fake trailer contest, which I didn't even know existed, but I am not surprised at all. This time there's English narration done by the creator, which will make anyone go, wow, eigo jozu desu ne, and if you're a fan of campy horror stuff, I can actually see you enjoying this one. I, for one, did not. Four Eyes is basically what happens when someone takes the album cover of Flying Lotus's Cosmogramma and goes, hey, I wonder what this would look like if I animated this in different colors. Wow, Jimmy, this weed is